Okay, so I just got back from the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and I decided, like, hey, I'm just gonna record a review video. I haven't done one since like Toy Story 4 back in 2019, and I'm doing this on the spot. I don't think I'm just gonna edit this video. I think I'm just gonna like do it as is. So this is probably gonna be sloppy. I'm probably most likely going to stumble on words, but who cares? I'm just going to speak my mind on this movie that I just saw like 10 minutes ago, just finished up. I literally just got home from seeing it, and so now I'm going to give my thoughts, review it, and this is going to be split up in two parts. So right now is the in general review, spoiler free, so you can watch this part if you've not seen the movie, and then later on I'm going into spoiler territory. I'm going to speak some specific stuff, so if you have not seen the movie, don't watch that part. So in general, the movie, yeah, I thought it was really good. I think that it was really just a well-rounded movie. It's not the most like horror movie. Like, there was some parts that obviously are intended to be scary. There's some parts that make you jump. There's it's a general horror movie, but kind of different. But this is coming from a guy who does not actively watch horror movies. This is some guy who actually kind of doesn't. He's not really a big fan of watching horror movies, so this was kind of a surreal experience. And I gotta say, it was really, really enjoyable. Now, it was that just because it's FNAF and I'm invested in the FNAF and the story? Yes. So that could just be a whole different factor. I will say though that as a movie as a whole, I thought it was really, really good. Some other generic things. I thought the overall story was really well written. There's some unexpected parts that you'll come across that'll make you say like, "Hey, this is not what I expected," and like, "Oh wow, this guy isn't there." I don't know, maybe. Um, oh, there is a part. There will be a part that will say, first will make you say, "Oh, it's that guy," and then 10 seconds later you're like, "Oh wow, he really did that." I'll mention that later in the spoiler section. If you already know what I'm talking about, then yeah, it's that. Some other just general things. I keep repeating myself. I'm trying to think of like non-specific things because this is like the spoiler-free section. I'm trying as hard as I can to be vague and not try to give away anything about it. The animatronics themselves were amazing. Like, first off, the way they were designed, Jim Henson kicked so much butt. I'm still saying but, yes. Jim Henson Company just knocked it out of the park with how the animatronics looked. And another thing is the way they acted. Like, the puppeteers, the controllers, the animatronics, or whatnot, also did a really, really good job of encapsulating like that animatronic like feel. There are some parts where it'll look as if they were like right out of like a copy of Chuck E. Cheese. Like the way they move and everything is like spot on. It's kind of crazy. And oh, that's right. One thought that came to my mind as I was like, that I just remembered. The way they set up the atmosphere is crazy, and I will say, they just kind of go from one setting to another. It's almost kind of back and forth, but I mean, what's to expect from like a movie like the FNAF movie? Because there's the day sequence, and then there's the first night, and then it's the next day sequence, and then it's the second night. So, but there actually is some in between parts, and there's actually some other key aspects of the story where it really ties into, which I will get into specifics later in the spoiler section. And in general, I just thought that I really liked it, and you know what? I think I literally cannot think of anything else to say without going into specifics. So now, we are at the spoiler moments. If you're not seeing the movie, go away, because this is where we go to spoilers. So, first off, there's obviously really interesting moments, specifically with the ghost, the spirits of the children. So it's really interesting how they set it up. So it's obviously implied at the very, like, the way they imply, like, the beginning, the very beginning, like, sets the scene. Like, it heavily implies, like, what happened, and so the general viewer can get a good idea of, like, who these children are. And so I think that's a really nice way of setting the foundation of these characters and everything, to the like all the context to that. So with that in mind, it gets really bizarre later on, like, especially with how they kind of tell this, they take a big part in telling the story of what happened to Mike's little brother, and they tell that story in a way where it's like, oh, so this happened, but it's like he keeps repeating it, but it's different every time. Like, he sees something, like, Mike sees something new, and I think that's really cool how, like, I don't know where I've seen something like that before. I've definitely seen something like that before, where I have some sort of dream sequence, or it's something else that happens, and so I like that a lot. Another thing that I really liked is the animatronic attack scenes, especially the ones where, you know, they have those people ransacking the place, and, you know, the animatronics find them and everything. I think those parts were really cool. I will say, though, the only one that was really, really good was the cupcake, you know, and how he was eating the face of that one guy, because the rest were kind of, obviously they were restricted by the PG-13 rating, but I feel like they could have maybe pushed the boundary. Like, obviously there's a bunch of scenes of the animatronics where it's from their point of view and it's just running at the person and then it cuts away. I obviously understand, because of PG-13, they could have obviously gotten a lot more crazy if it was rated R, but it is what it is. I still think it was perfectly, I think it was still fine. Another thing is the story about the aunt and how she wants to have custody of Abby, Mike's little sister. Obviously, they had to put that in there to kind of put in some sort of, like, story, because obviously the story has to have some sort of purpose, because it would be really, really hard for them to make a really, like, a simple FNAF movie of saying, like, there's this guy who finds a night shift security guard. Oh no, the animatronics want to attack him. Well, the first night's over, here's the next day, here's the next night, same thing happens. And so it's like, you gotta kind of build a foundation around that, and I think the way they did that with, like, Abby and the aunt was pretty fine. Here is a major one. So, surprise, surprise, Steve Raglan, the job guy, he's William Afton. But guess what? He's not Mike's father, he's Vanessa's father. What the heck? And so, like, that part threw me off. So I'm, like, thinking, so they did that to kind of mix up the story or whatever, I guess is fine. I just find it kind of an odd choice. If they wanted to mix up the story, I feel like they could have mixed up something else, because the main story is so heavily based upon the relationship between Mike and William and the whole Afton family and how it goes into chaos of the whole Fazbear entertainment. But who knows? Maybe if there's more movies, like there's obviously a planned trilogy. If within the next movies, maybe this will be kind of expanded upon with Vanessa and all that, because Vanessa's obviously starting to become another major character with the security breach and all that. But who knows if we'll get that far in the movie series. The cameos. Corey Kenshin, obviously pretty cool one to see. The taxi driver. He was a pretty decent role. He was a very small role, but he did his part pretty well. Matt Pat. Took me a second to fully realize that it was Matt Pat. Like, oh, Matt Pat's in here, obviously. And he said the line. You can already assume which one. I'm like, oh, of course, they just had to put that line in there. But, you know, it's for the memes, I guess. I might be missing a couple others. Obviously, there's the very, very, very subtle cameos, indirect cameos of like Dawko, Razbowski, 8-Bit Ryan, those guys on the wall. And there was something else. Oh, the kind of the final act, you know, where William is shown off. That part was sweet. That was easily probably the best part of the whole film, like the final act. And it was obviously shown off that William was controlling the animatronics, which a lot of people actually theorize with the whole red eyes thing, like their eyes are red when they're being controlled, which is not 100% true, because when Abby convinces them that they're being controlled and William is the bad guy, their eyes still turn red, like when they're staring at him when he's getting spring locked. So I don't know, the red eyes, they weren't even that much of a prominence in the movie, so I think that was perfectly fine. Overall, I think FNAF was a really, really good movie. I really hope they continue with this movie series. I think this has so much potential. And, oh yeah, that last thought. Watching this movie just really made me feel like I was watching like FNAF videos again. Like when I watched FNAF for the first time, it was so like outlandish and kind of creepy and eerie. And I kind of got that feeling from this movie. So this was really, really good. 9 out of 10. And that's pretty much it. And see ya.